The night cracked with thunder as Ethan clutched his chest, breath torn away by the sight of Lyra's tear-streaked face. She whispered, "Don't follow me," while her hand trembled on the sword pressed against her heart. Shadows of fire devoured the ruins around them, smoke curling into the storm. Ethan said, "I will break time itself if it keeps you alive." His voice shook with both love and fury, as lightning carved scars across the battlefield. Behind her, the dark figure of Malachar stepped forward, cloak whipping in the wind, his eyes glowing with cruel delight. Lyra's lips quivered, torn between duty and desire, and a single tear slid down her cheek like glass shattering. In that suspended moment, Ethan's heart tore between destiny and love, knowing one choice could unravel centuries. The storm quieted into silence as Ethan stood alone among the ruins, his chest burning with unanswered questions. He whispered, "Why must love demand sacrifice?" His voice dissolved into the rain. The sword Lyra dropped gleamed faintly in the mud, a cruel reminder of the path she chose. Ethan's hand hovered above it, but he dared not touch, as if its weight carried her fading soul. He staggered forward, broken stone crunching beneath his boots, until the distant echo of Malachar's laughter slithered across the battlefield. Ethan said, "I will not let you take her." The words were hollow, more a plea than a vow. The air tasted of smoke and sorrow, the night swallowing his hope. The ground shimmered faintly as Ethan staggered into the clearing, where the air rippled with time's pulse. From the shadows Lyra appeared, her silver armor reflecting broken strands of moonlight. She turned sharply, eyes wide, saying, "You should not be here." Ethan's breath caught as he stepped closer, aching to touch her but terrified she would vanish. He said, "Every second without you bends me closer to madness." Her hand lifted in warning, a glow circling her palm, threads of magic weaving between her fingers. "This path," she whispered, "leads to ruin for us both." Yet in her gaze lingered a longing too powerful to hide. From behind the fractured archway, Elias emerged, cloak dragging through the mud, his aged face shadowed by grief. He said, "You are chasing a flame that will consume you." Ethan turned, his jaw set, defiance sparking in his eyes. "I cannot abandon her." Elias placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, his wrinkled fingers trembling. Love is not always salvation. Sometimes it is the snare that binds destiny. Ethan's chest heaved, torn between rage and despair. The wind carried Elias's weary sigh as he added, "The threads of time are fraying, and you are the knife pressed against them." Ethan stepped back, his voice breaking. "Then, let me cut my own fate." In the distance, Malachar stood on the ridge, the storm bending around him as if the night obeyed his will. His crimson eyes pierced through the rain, lips curling into a sneer. "How fragile love makes you, Ethan," he called, his voice echoing like steel striking stone. Ethan's fists trembled as fury swelled in his chest. Malachar spread his arms wide, black cloak snapping in the wind, and shadows writhed like serpents at his feet. "You cannot rewrite destiny," he declared, "for destiny belongs to me." Lightning split the sky, framing his silhouette in fire and darkness. Ethan shouted, "I will fight time itself before I yield her to you." The world seemed to hold its breath as the storm stilled for one unbearable heartbeat. Moonlight spilled over the shattered clearing as Ethan approached Lyra, his steps hesitant, his chest heavy with longing. Her violet eyes lingered on him, fierce yet fragile, as if caught between love and ruin. She whispered, "You should have left me in the storm." Ethan's hand brushed the air, reaching for her, but afraid she would vanish again. "Every moment without you is a wound I cannot heal," he said, voice breaking with raw desperation. Her lips parted, trembling, yet silence held her captive. Shadows of time twisted faintly around her armor, as though warning her of his presence. Ethan stepped closer, rain-soaked hair clinging to his face, refusing to surrender to fear. The night hummed with a fragile heartbeat, binding them together. The silence broke as Marcus stumbled from behind a broken wall, his crooked grin hiding the fear in his eyes. "You two have the worst timing," he muttered, brushing mud from his tunic. Ethan glared, but Marcus raised his hands in mock surrender. I may not know magic, but I know trouble, and it's written all over her face. Lyra's gaze flickered, a faint smile breaking her anguish for a heartbeat. Ethan growled, "This isn't a game." Marcus shrugged, the weight of loyalty beneath his humor. "Neither is love, but I'll still stand with you." His words steadied the storm in Ethan's chest, reminding him he wasn't as alone as he felt. Elias appeared, his cloak trailing behind him, staff glowing faintly in his hand. He spoke softly, "The world unravels thread by thread, and you chase the one string destined to snap." Ethan's jaw tightened, his fists trembling. "If that string is Lyra, then let it snap." Elias's weary eyes darkened as he stepped closer. "You gamble not only with your heart, but with time itself." Lyra lowered her gaze, torn between the weight of his words and her unspoken desire. Marcus muttered, "He has a way of making doom sound poetic." The air thickened with tension, Elias's voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Every choice echoes," he said, "and yours may be the end of all echoes." From the shadows of the broken tower, Malakar emerged, his cloak hissing like smoke across the stone. His crimson eyes locked on Ethan with venomous delight. "Love makes fools of even the bravest," he sneered. Ethan stepped forward, fury blazing, but Lyra raised her sword between them, voice trembling. "You will not break him." Malakar's laugh cracked through the night, cruel and echoing. "You protect him, yet he is the knife that will cut your fate." Elias gripped his staff tighter, Marcus cursed under his breath, and Ethan's heart burned with rage. "Your words are poison," Ethan growled, though a seed of doubt stirred deep inside him. Malakar's shadow writhed, feeding the storm with dread. The ground split with a violent tremor, a surge of raw magic bursting upward as sparks lit the night sky. Ethan stumbled, Marcus clutching his arm to steady him. Lyra shouted, "Stay back," as her sword blazed with light, meeting Malakar's shadow. Elias struck his staff to the ground, summoning a shield that quivered against the impact. Malakar's voice thundered, "You cannot cage the storm." Ethan pushed forward despite the chaos, his voice cutting through the clash. "I will not lose her." Lyra's eyes widened, torn by the fire in his words and the truth in her fear. The night burned with conflict, love and destiny colliding in violent sparks. The earth shuddered as Ethan barely dodged a searing strike of shadow that cracked the stone at his feet. His chest heaved, his sword trembling in his hand, green eyes blazing with defiance. Lyra rushed to his side, her armor scarred by the clash of light and darkness. "Stay with me," she cried, her voice sharp with fear and fury. Ethan staggered upright, blood dripping from a cut across his brow. "I'm not leaving you, not now, not ever." The shadows surged again, forcing Marcus to drag Ethan back as sparks rained around them. Elias raised his staff, chanting words lost to time, his shield flickering as the storm roared. The night became a battlefield of survival, every breath stolen from fate. When the storm lulled for a heartbeat, Ethan collapsed to his knees, his hands pressed against the fractured earth. He whispered, "How can I fight a destiny that already decided my loss?" His voice broke with desperation. Lyra knelt before him, violet eyes burning with sorrow. "You are stronger than the fate written for you," she said, though doubt laced her tone. Marcus crouched nearby, voice softer than his grin. "You've carried the world's weight long enough, friend. Maybe it's time you carried only your heart." Ethan raised his gaze, rain sliding across his face, torn between surrender and defiance. The silence between them hummed louder than the storm's roar. The moon broke through the storm, casting pale light on the clearing where Ethan and Lyra stood inches apart. Her trembling hand rose to his cheek, warmth fighting against the cold rain. "If I let myself love you, the world will burn," she whispered, her voice fractured. Ethan leaned closer, his breath trembling against hers. "Then let it burn. I will not live in a world without you." For a heartbeat, silence consumed them, broken only by their ragged breaths. Marcus turned away, muttering, "Well, that's either love or the start of another disaster." Their lips nearly touched before the air rippled violently, shattering the fragile moment into shards of fear. A figure emerged from the shadows, armor tarnished, eyes burning with regret. It was Cale, once their brother in arms, now a ghost of loyalty turned to ash. Ethan froze, his voice a whisper, "You." Cale smirked, though pain twisted his expression. "Did you think love was yours alone to suffer?" Lyra's face paled, her lips trembling at the sight of him. "You should not be here," she said, her voice laced with old sorrow. Cale stepped forward, his hand brushing the hilt of his blade. "I was here before him. I loved you before time betrayed me." His voice cracked as the storm rumbled. Ethan's rage flared, his heart burning with betrayal. From high above the ridge, Malakar's laughter rolled like thunder, his cloak whipping in the wind as shadows curled around him. "Even love eats its own," he called, crimson eyes gleaming. Ethan's chest tightened as Cale's gaze clashed with his, both men tethered to Lyra's silent anguish. She whispered, "Stop this," her voice breaking. Cale drew his blade, steel singing against the storm, and Malakar's laughter deepened. Elias raised his staff, his voice warning, "This is the fracture that will split us all." Marcus muttered, "And I thought the storm was bad." Ethan lifted his sword, fire in his eyes. The night trembled with a choice that could not be undone. The storm calmed into eerie silence as the shapeshifter revealed herself, stepping into the moonlight with a sly smile. Her form shimmered, shifting between friend and foe, familiar and strange. Marcus gasped, "You've been among us this whole time." She tilted her head, voice dripping with mischief. "Trust is such a fragile thing." Ethan raised his sword, his chest burning with betrayal. "Show me your true face." Her skin rippled, revealing a haunting blend of beauty and deceit. Lyra's voice cracked, "Why now?" The shapeshifter's grin widened. "Because the truth was never meant to comfort you. It was meant to destroy you." The night trembled with unveiled danger. Elias stepped forward, his staff trembling as if the revelation had stripped him bare. "She is not your enemy alone," he confessed, his voice heavy with guilt. Ethan turned, rage sparking. "You knew?" Elias lowered his head, shadows deepening the lines on his face. "I knew she was bound to you all, though I did not know when she would reveal herself." Lyra's gaze narrowed, her voice sharp. "You held truth from us?" Marcus spat bitterly. "Seems like everyone here enjoys secrets." The shapeshifter laughed, her voice echoing. "Even wisdom has its lies." Ethan's chest heaved, the weight of betrayal twisting his heart. Lyra stepped back, her violet eyes trembling as she whispered, "There is something I never told you." Ethan's breath caught, his gaze locked on her. She raised her hand, revealing a glowing sigil carved into her palm, pulsing with ancient power. "I was bound to protect the one who holds time's thread," she said, her voice breaking. Marcus whispered, "And that one is?" Her eyes flickered toward Ethan, sorrow thick in her stare. "Him." Ethan staggered back, heart racing as if the world had shifted beneath his feet. "You mean?" "I was never your choice. I was your duty." Her silence confirmed his greatest fear. Elias's voice carried like a tolling bell. The prophecy spoke of a protector bound by love and blood. Lyra was never free. She was chained to him by fate. Ethan's chest heaved as fury and heartbreak clashed in his veins. "So my love was forged in chains," he shouted, his voice raw. Lyra's tears fell freely, her lips trembling. "I loved you, Ethan, but I was never allowed to choose." Marcus shook his head, muttering, "This is madness. No heart should bear this." Malakar's laughter slithered across the night. "Now you see, love is not freedom, it is a prison." Shadows coiled, feeding on their despair. The shapeshifter's form solidified, her face clear for the first time, striking, cruel, yet sorrowful. "The bond between you was never curse nor blessing. It is the key." Ethan's fists trembled, his voice shaking. The key to what? She smiled faintly, eyes dark with hidden grief. To unraveling time itself. Lyra gasped, her heart torn open by the truth. Elias gripped his staff, whispering, "If the bond breaks, the world ends." Malakar's voice thundered across the ruins. "Then I will break it." The ground split beneath their feet, magic ripping upward in violent waves. Ethan's love had become the weapon of war. Ethan's chest heaved as the storm raged around him, his voice tearing through the chaos. "I will not be a prisoner of prophecy. I choose her, not fate." Lyra's eyes widened, tears mixing with the rain. "Ethan, you don't understand the cost." He stepped forward, lifting his sword high. "Let the world burn if it means I hold you." Elias's staff shook in his hand, his voice breaking. "You dare defy the threads of time itself," Marcus muttered. "For once, I'm siding with him. Love's the only reason I'm still standing." The earth pulsed, the sigil on Lyra's palm blazing as if responding to Ethan's vow. Destiny groaned under defiance. Malakar's cloak unfurled like wings of shadow as he stepped onto the fractured ground. His crimson eyes gleamed with triumph. "Every vow you make, boy, feeds me. Your rebellion is my strength." Ethan tightened his grip on his sword, fury scorching his veins. "Then I'll starve you with silence." Malakar laughed, deep and venomous. "Too late. Love has already poisoned you." The earth shook as dark tendrils coiled upward, feeding on their despair. Lyra raised her blade, her voice breaking. "I won't let him claim you." Elias lifted his staff, summoning a trembling shield, but Malakar's shadows clawed against it, hungry for collapse. Marcus darted forward, eyes wide with fear, but hands steady, hurling a dagger into the heart of the shadows. Sparks burst as the darkness shrieked and faltered. "I may not be a hero, but I'm not useless," he shouted. Ethan turned, surprise breaking his fury. "Marcus." His voice cracked with gratitude. Malakar's grin faltered as the shadows recoiled for a moment. Elias's voice thundered, "The smallest light can wound the deepest dark." Marcus smirked despite trembling. "Guess I'm brighter than I look." The moment of levity steadied Ethan's spirit, a reminder that courage thrived even in the weakest hearts. Lyra's sword blazed brighter, her face torn between love and dread. She turned to Ethan, her voice trembling. "If I give in to this bond, I may be lost forever." Ethan stepped closer, desperation burning in his eyes. "Then let me be lost with you." She shook her head violently, violet eyes shimmering. "No. If one of us falls, the other must rise." Malakar's laughter echoed, feeding the storm. "How poetic, love as sacrifice." Elias's voice quaked with urgency. "Choose carefully, for the wrong step ends all things." The storm seemed to wait, holding its breath as Lyra lifted her sword. The storm split open as Kale stepped forward, his tarnished armor shining faintly in the lightning. His blade gleamed with sorrow as he faced Ethan. "Step aside. Her fate is mine to carry." Ethan's rage erupted. "You forfeited that right when you chose darkness." Lyra's chest heaved, torn between two men, love twisted with betrayal. Kale's lips trembled, his voice soft. "I loved her before you even knew her name." Marcus groaned. "This is going to end badly." Elias lifted his staff, his voice breaking. "Do not let grief blind you." Steel clashed as Kale raised his blade, stormlight reflecting the fracture of brotherhood. The battlefield erupted with fire and storm as Ethan charged, sword raised, striking against Malakar's swirling shadows. Sparks exploded, casting the ruins in blinding light. Lyra fought beside him, her silver armor glowing with each slash, her eyes locked on him with unspoken devotion. Malakar's cloak split into serpents of darkness, coiling and striking. Elias shouted, "Hold the line!" his staff blazing against the chaos. Marcus darted through debris, hurling daggers that pierced the shadows. Kale clashed with Ethan, torn between rage and regret, steel ringing in betrayal. Ethan's voice cracked as he roared, "I will not lose her!" Lightning split the sky, destiny hanging by a single breath. Malakar raised his hands, summoning a storm of shadow spears that rained from the sky. Ethan blocked with his blade, sparks spraying as steel met darkness. Lyra leapt before him, her sword blazing brighter than ever. "You will not take him," she cried, her voice breaking into the storm. Malakar sneered. "He was never yours. He belongs to time." Elias thrust his staff into the ground, a radiant shield forming above them, trembling under the weight of shadows. Marcus shouted, "It won't hold!" Cale hesitated, his blade trembling, torn between loyalty and love. Ethan's chest heaved, his voice a vow. "You cannot chain love, not even time can." The shadows surged and seized Lyra, binding her in chains of black fire. She gasped, her sword clattering to the ground. Ethan lunged, screaming her name, but Cale blocked his path, steel crossing steel. "Stand down!" Cale shouted, his eyes blazing with torment. Ethan's fury ignited, his sword striking like wildfire. "I will never abandon her." Their blades clashed, sparks lighting their faces with anguish. Lyra's voice trembled through the storm. "Ethan, don't. Sacrifice yourself." Malakar laughed, venom dripping. "You see? Love divides and division destroys." Ethan's strength faltered, his heart breaking as Lyra's tears shimmered through the chains of shadow. Elias raised his staff high, chanting ancient words that shook the air. A wave of blinding light burst outward, shattering some of the chains. "Now, Ethan," he roared. Ethan broke past Cale, rushing toward Lyra. Malakar howled, his shadows writhing like a storm unleashed. Marcus dove forward, stabbing his dagger into the ground, channeling a pulse of light that stunned the shadows for a heartbeat. Ethan seized Lyra's hand, their palms colliding as the glowing sigil flared between them. The ground quaked violently, the storm spinning around them like a spiral of fire and rain. Lyra whispered, "Our bond is the key." Ethan's heart shattered at the truth. The world fractured as the sigil flared, tearing the sky open with blinding light. Malakar roared, his cloak dissolving into shards of shadow. Lyra's lips trembled, her eyes fixed on Ethan. "One of us must break the bond, or time will end." Ethan's heart convulsed, his grip on her hand unyielding. "Then let time end with us." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "No, I cannot let you." She pulled her hand away, the sigil shattering with a scream of magic. Ethan fell to his knees, the world crumbling as Lyra's figure began to dissolve into light. His cry pierced the storm, a sound of love, loss, and defiance against eternity. Silence fell as the storm faded, leaving only smoke curling from the broken earth. Ethan knelt among the ruins, his hand outstretched where Lyra had stood moments before. His chest burned with the echo of her touch, the sigil's glow now only a scar across his palm. Marcus approached slowly, his usual grin gone, his voice hollow. "She saved you, but at what cost?" Ethan whispered, his voice raw. "She was the cost." Elias leaned heavily on his staff, grief shadowing his weary face. "Her sacrifice sealed the fracture, but it left you broken." Ethan closed his eyes, a single tear carving through the ash on his cheek as silence swallowed them all. Elias stepped closer, his voice quiet yet steady. "Love carries both salvation and ruin. She chose salvation for you, though it cost her freedom." Ethan's jaw clenched, his green eyes burning through his tears. "And what is salvation without her?" Elias's weathered face softened, though sorrow lingered. "It's the burden of the living, to carry love beyond loss." Marcus lowered his head, muttering, "Seems like destiny always wins." The old mentor rested a trembling hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Destiny may guide, but love defines. Never forget, her choice was her love." The words struck Ethan's heart like a wound, but also like a flame refusing to die. Marcus exhaled sharply, trying to mask his grief with humor. "Well, if the world's still here, I guess we didn't fail entirely." Ethan looked up at him, his lips curving faintly, though his eyes remained shattered. Marcus crouched beside him, whispering, "She wouldn't want you to break with her. She'd want you to fight even now." Ethan's chest trembled with every breath, torn between despair and the spark of survival. Elias's voice carried across the ruins. "Hope survives in the smallest of embers." Marcus smiled faintly, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. "Then we'll keep her flame alive, together." Ethan nodded, his silence louder than words. At the edge of the ruins, Ethan rose, his sword dragging against the ground, his body weary yet unbroken. He stared into the horizon where shadows once ruled, his voice a whisper. "Lyra, I will carry you through time itself." Elias sighed, his eyes filled with both pride and sorrow. Marcus adjusted his torn tunic, muttering, "Then we'll follow you into madness if we must." The night was calm now, the storm's rage only a memory, yet the ache of love hung heavy. Ethan tightened his grip on the sword, his scarred palm glowing faintly, as if Lyra's presence still lingered. He stepped forward, leaving grief behind, but carrying her within him. Ethan paused on the ridge, turning his gaze upward. The stars pierced the night, one shining brighter than the rest. His lips moved softly. "I will not forget you." A breeze stirred, carrying the faintest echo of Lyra's voice, a whisper of love that lingered in the air. His chest ached, but a faint smile broke through his grief. Marcus called from behind, "Ready?" Ethan nodded slowly, green eyes still fixed on the star. "Ready." But as he stepped into the unknown, the scar on his palm glowed once more, as if her hand still held his. The night closed with silence, but the memory of her light would never fade.